500 to 600 barbecue meals for those affected by the flood.
Okay. Now we're going to emphasize, we're going to beat this. We're going to beat this pretty hard. It's the proof of loss claim that you have to file within 60 days, because we've just seen it too often that people don't file it. The full extent of their damages are not covered by the flood payment from the claims adjuster, and they're out of luck because they didn't file the proof of loss claim. So, I mean, we're going to talk about it through the show, but there's other things you can do. There's a contents claim and that you also have. And a lot of people who are flooded right now, I know they're going through a lot of different emotions, like, dealing with a lot of practical aspects of how they're going to live their life in the short term. But one of the things they should do right now is start compiling a list of all the contents that have been damaged,
and photograph the damages before you throw it out. If you're going to make a big pile in the front before an adjuster has the opportunity to get there, you want to photograph, especially the big ticket items, everything that you have, and just before you get rid of it, because they're going to say, well, wait a minute, prove you had it. Where are the photos?
Right. And one of the things about it is you remember best what you have right after the event. So in other words, you just take your phone out, go to your notebook section, and start putting in everything that you see or think about that's been touched by water.
Of course, I'm in my 50s, so I would actually get an actual
notebook
and write it in my notebook. But
it would probably be wet, though.
It might be wet. I think there's probably a Walgreens open.
But basically, if you start compiling the list as you go along, because you're going to remember things that are very, rudimentary.
And also not just, as you're pulling it out of the house and trying to dry it off or trying to do whatever you're doing with it, take a photograph of it, write it down, start thinking about maybe what you paid for it when you purchased it, and jot those down too, because they're going to want to take the depreciation on it. A little trick about antiques. If it's an antique, don't call it an antique, because the antique may not be covered as an antique. However, you can say solid mahogany dresser, and so with marble top or something along those lines, where if you went to purchase that new, the value would be X, other than just, an old dresser. So, there's ways to kind of list items in the that may not be 100 years old and technically an antique, but still a nice old piece that's valuable.
I think the general policy is, when you're going back to your house and you start pulling things out, snap pictures of everything.
Yep.
Just snap it all. Your phone could hold hundreds and hundreds of pictures.
Right.
And so just snap it all, because you're going to need that. Because when you go sitting down with the claims adjuster, or if you're sitting in
a courtroom,
and you got all the pictures, and you got everything documented, the scales seem to tip toward the insured.
Correct. And take a little ownership in this. Don't just sit back and wait for somebody else to come along and go through all this stuff. It's up to you, because when that adjuster shows up, that adjuster is going to show up and maybe take some pictures of what he sees in terms of contents, but he's really there to assess the damages to the structure. I mean, that's his purpose. So it's going to be up to you to submit that contents list and make sure it's accurate. So again, there's likely going to be a depreciation taken on it. So you need to make sure you
and also too, especially for your newer items, they're going to take a depreciation what they visualize, what they see.
Mm-hmm.
And if you just bought a new TV, you bought a new dresser, note that on your list that it's brand new, so that, because they may assume that the dresser's 5 or 10 years old,
right,
and take a depreciation
based on its useful life.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So you definitely, if there's certain attributes of the items that are damaged that enhance the value, record that, so that when it's time to start negotiating
Correct.
that.
Instead of just dresser, if you have a name brand, if it's like a very prominent name brand piece of furniture or dresser or whatever, then you can.
And clothes.
Yeah,
like clothes. Like,
right. Yeah.
Like if you, unlike me, where you buy clothes at Steinmart and on sale, you dress like Albert, real fancy.
Yeah, right.
With name brand.
I'm a real fancy dresser.
With name brand items, with the little horsey on on your chest.
No, but but that is a great idea, because if there are more expensive items, leather clothing or boots and shoes. I know women have lots of shoes that they can take photographs of that they've paid a lot of money for, and that's
Absolutely.
sitting on the floor. So chances are that got wet. You know, take photos of that and document your claim.
All right. I tell you what, let's go to a break. We got Lynn, who's a former claims adjuster, who's going to tell us more, I guess, tips on what to do with flood. So we'll be right back.
Hang on through the break if you could.
Okay, we'll be right back. All things legal. Doug Sunseri, Albert Nico. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.